Lou Bedford, and I am the CEO of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our board of directors, our staff, and our presenting partner, Florida Crystals, we want to welcome you to the program. We're excited to bring this topic to you on the real estate market and the future of workspace. So before we bring our panel in and our moderator, I'd like to share with you all that we are winding down our virtual events. We will be having 2 virtual events in June. And our Executive Vice President, Marie Ann Tuna, will share those events with you at the end of this program. But if you could please all mark your calendars for Thursday, August 26th. I'm excited to announce that our first in-person economic forum will be taking place that day. We'll be featuring keynote speaker, State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg, and we'll be sending you the details of this program and this event in the future. So we're looking forward to that. At this time, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our moderator for today, Al Malafato. Al is a shareholder with Lewis, Longman and Walker. He is also a member of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber Board of Directors and our chair for the Economic Development Advisory Council here at the Chamber. So Al, I turn the program over to you.
Thank you very much, Mary Lou, and good morning, everyone. I'm really excited about our program today. Let's talk about the future of workplace, or workspace, I should say. In light of the pandemic we've been living through over the last 14, 15 months now, we're getting to the point where we can get back to work and get out of our remote work locations, as I'm in my home today, and get back to workspace. And we're going to hear about that from a very distinguished panel of real estate professionals, and I'll introduce them in a moment. But before I do, I'd like to introduce our presenting partner, Caroline Villanueva. Caroline is a South Florida External Affairs Manager with Florida Crystals Corporation, and she's also another board member, along with myself, of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce. Caroline?
Hi, thank you, Al. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to thank you to the Central and Hispanic Chambers of Commerce of Palm Beach County for hosting this timely discussion today. Thank you to each person tuning in now or watching this later for making time to hear about Palm Beach County's state of commercial, industrial, and retail real estate markets. As a business ourselves celebrating its 60th anniversary, Florida Crystals appreciates you for being supportive of locally grown farm fresh foods by supporting our local agricultural economy. Recently in the news, we learned that Palm Beach County is the top relocation destination for 14,000 plus residents from New York. And with that means jobs, businesses, and a growing business base. With the growth in new residents, friends, and new neighbors, we look forward to hearing from our speakers today on what relocation and other factors have affected our Palm Beach County real estate market. Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Caroline. And that's very important and helpful information. I'm now going to take a few moments to introduce our speakers. And ladies and gentlemen, you can turn on your cameras so we can all see you. One of our speakers today is Sky Groden. Sky is the Managing Director and National Director at JLL Real Estate Company. His expertise and experience include site selection, build-to-suit developments, sale leasebacks, acquisitions, relocations, consolidations, renewals, and land acquisition dispositions on behalf of local, national, and global companies. A South Florida native, Sky started his career in real estate in 1995 and joined JLL in January 2015. In 2004, Mr. Groden received his SIOR, which is Society of Industrial Office Realtors designation. That's a professional symbol of the highest level of knowledge, production, and ethics in the real estate industry. And you'll be hearing from Sky in a moment and the rest of the panelists. I'd also like to introduce Dorothy Jacks. Dorothy was elected as Palm Beach County's property appraiser in 2016 after a distinguished 28-year career working in that office. As a certified Florida appraiser and assessment administration specialist, she has the highest professional designation in Florida and one of the highest international designations for someone who holds the office of property appraiser in the state of Florida. Ms. Jack's key initiatives to the Property Appraiser's Office are focused on producing a fair and equitable tax roll, broadening the efficiency of the office, embracing new and innovative technology, enhancing community outreach, and increasing exceptional customer service for all taxpayers in Palm Beach County. So welcome, Dorothy. Next on our panel is Eric Johnson, and he is the CEO of Gator Commercial Real Estate. He's a licensed real estate broker and focuses on retail, office, industrial, land, medical, and buyer-seller tenant rep for owners, users, and investors. He is active in the real estate industry, serving on boards and committees, and is the immediate past president of the Realtors Commercial Alliance of Broward, Palm Beach, and St. Lucie. And finally, last but not least, Neil Marin. Neil is the founder and chairman of NAI Marin Hunter Codman, the largest commercial real estate firm in Palm Beach County. He's a commercial real estate expert with a broad background in all phases of commercial real estate, including investment sales, tenant representation, site acquisition, development consulting, corporate facilities, and industrial facilities. Mr. Marin's specialty within the commercial real estate field involves the sale and leasing of office and retail facilities. Over the past 20 years, Mr. Marin has represented both owners and tenants in over 30 million square feet of property negotiations, representing over $7 billion in real estate transactions. Pretty impressive, Neil. As we get started now, I'd like to have each of our panelists take a few minutes and give their view of the current state of the real estate market in Palm Beach County. And we're going to start it off with Eric. Eric, go ahead. Eric Johnson.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Al. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think this topic today is so relevant because jobs are so important. I just want to say a quick shout out to some of our panelists here. Round of applause for Dorothy and her Property Appraiser website. It's probably the best one on the planet. The fellow brokers on this call have done so much for our industry, and their firms are truly market makers. We even named our COVID baby Hunter after all of NAI's efforts there. Let's give Al a big thanks. Actually just heard Paul Simon was moving to the Wellington area, not for the equestrian lifestyle, just so he could call you Al. Be sure to thank a chamber staffer. They have put a lot of effort into calls like this. They're always doing amazing things behind the scenes that you probably don't even know about. Putting together, helping manage and grow our local economies with private and public business partners. I don't know if you know this, but Florida is the 17th largest economy in the world. In countries like Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, and Argentina, it doesn't do that by itself. It does it with folks like the chambers. I'd also like to preface any comments today. I hope I don't offend anybody, as that's not any of our intentions. We're just here to share perspectives on a very important topic. And the surface reads pretty plain. As we work through it, I could see some opinions jump around a little bit, and know that we're all here talking and trying to make our communities a better place to live, work, and play. I'm going to make some quick comments so I can focus a little on the residential here in a minute. But spoiler alert, it's a seller's market. People love our sunshine and taxes. It doesn't even matter what kind of property it is. Real estate is local. That's what we talk about in this format. Different cities, states, counties, respectively, their employers and employees, decisions on how that they're managing this pandemic might not be the same as we're seeing here. Also, spoiler alert, stuff is expensive. Inflation plus demand, it's a little bit exhausting. Have you shopped for a used car lately? And spoiler alert again on how to bring people back into your store or place of work, give them free Jimmy Buffett tickets. Thank you again.
Thank you, Eric. Next, Neil, can you give us the perspective of the commercial retail market as it now stands?
Well, it's kind of an interesting, interesting story because we have certain submarkets that are hot and they're national buzz, like downtown West Palm Beach. But overall, we are having, trouble from fallout from the pandemic and the new uses and the work from home issues. In reality, the vacancy rates in office overall in Palm Beach County have increased from 10.5% to 12% in the last year. They're probably going to go up another point or point and a half before we start to trim that out. There is great influx. Our vacancy rates and our nominal increases are nominal compared to the rest of the country. but they're still happening. Retail is interesting also in that we actually have a very viable and rapidly growing retail base still. There's 800,000 feet of new construction underway in Palm Beach County right now. Our vacancy rates have increased, as you would expect, from about 4.6 to 5.1%. However, that's really taking place because you've got some large boxes like Neiman Marcus and some of the gyms and other things that have closed, and they're just gone. As we predicted, a lot of the retail, and it happened faster than we thought, when restaurants went out, that new ones would repopulate, and they have repopulated. We expected them to be from people who moved here slowly over time, but instead all the people from New York came because they could open. And that continues. So, overall, I think we're very positive, but we have some adjustments to make in some of our markets. We'll talk about it as we go on. But the rents have grown still. They've not gone backwards. Rent growth has slowed. Office rents are only up 1.2% versus 3-4% the prior 3 years. Retail rents are up about 2.6%. They were running about 3.5% annually before this, but I don't think you'll find any other part of the country where people can say that we're still raising rents in light of everything that's gone on.
Remember to unmute myself. Thank you, Neil. Sky, why don't you give us your perspective on the market, and particularly in the industrial market right now?
Thank you, Al, and thank you everyone in the Hispanic Chamber and all of the other panelists. We are enjoying a pretty interesting time in the industrial market right now. Palm Beach County has historically seen significant growth and only added fuel to the fire through COVID with the influx that Eric mentioned of all of the new to market population increase drives a lot of that consumer demand for the industrial distribution of products. The residential market and the growth in the residential market has been tremendous to all of the building allied services that utilize warehouse space and other industrial types of properties. And from Boca through Jupiter, the amount of available land scarcity for industrial development has driven those values up significantly higher and absorbed so much of that available land for industrial expansion that now most of it is going through buying bidding sprees. We've seen all-time highs for the industrial building values, and there is no lack of buyers that are coming from all over the country, from institutional, public, private, pension fund, family offices that all are trying to live, work, and play here in our wonderful county. I think industrial has seen rental rate growth probably at the fastest pace ever in the county, and it still hasn't slowed down. There's some larger users, e-commerce based, that have taken a lot of that absorption, but then there's a tremendous amount of organic growth for all of the various food and beverage, construction materials, third-party logistics, aviation. There's many, many wonderful dynamics in our county and the current environment.
Thank you, Sky. And that's, really interesting to see how the different sectors are, evolving through this whole pandemic era. And we'll get into more of that, as this program goes on. Before we do, Dorothy, I would like to hear from your perspective from the property appraiser's office, and also how how this COVID slowdown may have affected property values.
Yeah, hi Al. It's so nice to be with you and be with the other panelists too. It's interesting already. We, of course, in our office take much of we're a sort of 30,000-foot view of the market. And right now we are wrapping up our work for the 2021 roll that we'll submit to the cities shortly. 39 cities in this county, it makes for an interesting mix. Some places are doing, as Neil said, so much better than some others. Although honestly, we are downright optimistic about what the year panned out to be. The value you pay a tax on this fall are actually based on what was happening through January 1st of this year. So we had to take a dive into all of 2020. And when you look at the fourth quarter of 2020, how strong it was, it sort of balanced out the difficult times in April and May and into June. The market really picked back up in the middle of the year last year. I mean, we're watching it now and it just seems like it's not going to slow. However, this is a trend. It's been going on for actually quite some time. As Neil said, a lot of it is about specifics in the commercial sector that struggled, but we are a predominantly residential county. 70% of our value comes from residential property. So this big movement in residential is going to help to kind of raise all ships as we go into the new year. I think there's a couple things that stand out for me. One is the amount of new construction that is occurring and did occur last year. New construction was deemed essential during COVID, and so it just kept right on ticking right through the dark times. In fact, I think they probably got more done because there was less traffic on the road, so they could get their product to their sites easier. And we're going to add a record amount of new construction this year, which is based on what finished last year, and even higher than the prior year, which was a pretty darn good year. So, and I don't think that's ending. I mean, it continues. I think the only thing that will slow it now is possibly shortages or difficulty accessing materials, but even with that, I think the new construction numbers are going to continue to be strong. The other thing is affordability, and it's interesting because it's not just a residential problem, it's also an affordability in prime areas like Sky just talked about. We have to be very careful as a community and as a county to think about that long term, about transportation issues and about making sure that this remains an attractive place to be. I think about California. People are leaving California because the traffic is so bad. Well, there was a reason they went there in the first place, and now they're leaving. We don't want that to be a Florida problem. Everybody comes here, but we're not properly managing the reasons why people stay. That's got to be something we think about. Same thing with education. It's the same issue there. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad to talk about some of the specifics as we move forward.
Thank you, Dorothy, and we really appreciate you being here as well. Before I go back to the panelists, I just want to relate a little personal situation regarding the future of workspace, and this is personalized to my law firm. Lewis, Longman & Walker, we've been a tenant in the Northbridge Center, AKA the Darth Vader building, for about 12 years. But our lease was coming to an end in February, and we actually made the decision after looking around and negotiating to move out of our space. So we are physically out of our space now. All of our attorneys and staff are working remotely from home, as you can see in my background, not my office. But we will be moving into our new office space next month in June, into the new Related building in what's now called Rosemary Square. Used to be City Place. We'll be at 360 Rosemary, and I was asked by Neil actually if I'm looking forward to that, and frankly I am. I'm looking forward to getting into our brand new building. Just a little personal aside, but it does coincide with our program today. Eric, I'm going to go back to you now. And while I understand that most of your your practice and your work deals with commercial and industrial real estate. I'd like you to comment a bit about the residential market, because obviously there is a tie-in between residential and workspace and commercial, because they're the customers of commercial.
Thanks, Al, for that disclaimer. Again, so I am not a residential real estate expert, but I'll try and cover this in just a couple minutes, because that's just representative about how long a house stays in the market before it sells nowadays. I think there's a slide, I don't know if you guys are able to put that up. As you look at that slide, which may be summed up as homes are being sold more quickly for more money in less time, here are a few more thoughts and comments I have. First, some big picture good news. 99% of markets nationwide showed property value increases over the last 12 months. 100% of those being double-digit gains. This is bad news. I guess if you were in the other 1%, I can't even find what market that was. Maybe it was San Francisco or something. Or if you were a buyer in recent months, like me. In a nutshell, as the group mentioned, Florida is a beneficiary of positive net in-migration because of our abundant sunshine, perhaps, or the absence of personal income tax. I think we're only one of 7 states which boasts this. This is equated to about 1,000 people a day coming to the state, 1,000 people to the month in Palm Beach County over the last several years. And that held steady, I think, throughout the pandemic. Anyone who was able to leave came. Many of these folks flock in our area were stuck working indoors, with nowhere they could go, nowhere allowed to go outside in cold weather. And that number might have been jump-started, just like what we saw with an uptick in the adoption of e-commerce, with our region being more opened and warm. And many of them were coming with cash in hand, lots of cash. Florida's luxury and ultra luxury segment also has created the nation's largest gaps between median asking price and most expensive listing price. That's why we don't use the average number here, just that median sale price number. But since I know you're a curious crew, I'll tell you the average sale price for a single family home in April 2021 was greater than $1 million. Dorothy mentioned the in-migration and where people are coming from. So yeah, California, New York, Connecticut, to name a few, for several years, that's been happening. Do not worry, New Yorkers, though. South Florida still attracts more than 50% of Manhattanites moving to the Sunshine State. With people moving in, though, we have people moving out as well. Some are capitalizing on the sale of their real estate and moving out, not necessarily out of state, but to maybe lesser expensive opportunities in areas like Treasure Coast, just to the north, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, St. Pete. I'm sure most people on this call joining have considered at least selling as an option, but then ask themselves the question, but where would I go? And the last go around in 2008, the Great Recession, I think we saw something similar resembling this, kind of like a wave riding up and down the coast, and it settled somewhere north of here. Where will this all stop? I have no idea. I don't see an epic collapse of the real estate market, largely due to the aforementioned amount of cash and equity that really differentiates ourselves from about 13 years ago. I think Sky mentioned too, I mean, from the world's largest institutional investors down to guys like me trying to find a place to raise a family, just demand every which way you look at it. It'll be interesting though to see the housing product coming to market as new construction versus existing resale. How will the eviction moratorium shake out? What about potential for foreclosures? People have questions about that. Will municipalities open up, their rezoning and repurposing of certain product types to be converted to other more in-demand product types like housing? And how much of an increase in density or compactness will they allow for? With buyers transitioning from second homes to primary residence, how will that shape local developers' understanding of the optimal product mix? I don't know. With companies looking to relocate here, many of you guys are employers. How will you find your employees a place to call home? That's a great question. FYI, that those bottom marks there, the month supply of inventory, a healthy real estate market is known to have about 6 months of supply. So just to put some of that stuff in perspective, if you want a copy of this slide or for any other nearby counties, ask your friendly neighborhood realtor or message someone at the chamber. I could forward you this or them. Thank you so much.
Yeah, please go ahead and message Emily Statnick if you'd like that information. And that's very helpful. Thank you, Eric. Interesting information. Sky, turning back to you, Dorothy mentioned how construction really did increase and continue to pace, through especially the fourth quarter of last year. On the industrial side, how does this continued increase in land and commodities and the cost of the commodities, construction materials, impact the development of speculative construction versus build-to-suit demand?
I think that the costs have to be passed on somewhere. I think that, you know, we're seeing a lot of discussion about where we are with, you know, inflation. I think that a lot of potential business owners are going to have to swallow hard and absorb some of the cost increases for, you know, rent. And if they're, you know, considering trying to expand, then where do they find the right location so that they're not going much further away from where their clients are? Transportation cost increase can be, you know, the next really big number on the horizon as well. I think that there's difficulty in a lot of newer to market tenants understanding the rental rates for industrial space down here versus potentially in the Treasure Coast, potentially, you know, further out on the perimeter, but their clients ultimately are here and further south, and they need to be able to, you know, distribute to or service those groups in a timely fashion, or lose out to the other potential business owners that are closer and able to offer more cost-effective solutions. I think we're seeing a tremendous amount of newer institutional money that is already aware of those increased costs in other markets, whether it's in the boroughs or New Jersey or California, and they've already experienced some of the land constraint and the higher population density, that they understand the land values and rental values are going to increase more dramatically. Fundamentals in our marketplace being so strong, and, you know, land so scarce, that inevitably they'll pay more today to plant their flag and have a larger presence. There are a significant amount of groups that specialize in the build-to-suit market. However, when they see that their margins are compressed, then they look for other markets that they can capitalize on the higher margins, and maybe leave the speculative gamble to other groups that are willing to take more compressed margin for the future development risk. I think that we're going to see industrial rates here in the very near term on some larger deals, probably going double digit. I think that with the continued increase in the taxes as well, and overall operating expenses, it's only a matter of time before we see some consolidation in the industry overall, because their footprint is a costly spend to be here, and it makes more sense to buy some of their competition. Overall, it is incredibly challenging for a lot of the smaller businesses to continue to compete when they don't have the same level of available capital, and those groups will most likely end up, you know, talking to some of their, you know, bigger Fortune, you know, 500 companies, and inevitably selling or figuring out a way to maybe survive and service and continue to provide more of a service-related industry.
Thanks, Guy. Neil, and that focus, I think, was primarily on industrial. Relate that, if you can, to retail and office market, and particularly locally here in Palm Beach County.
It's difficult to compare at this point in time. the industrial market has skyrocketed away from the other two commercial branches because I mentioned before about big stores closing. They're opening up in the warehouses. And so there's a whole shift there that we're way behind on and trying to catch up. In the office market, I think what we're seeing, and I've seen this through many cycles, we're seeing relocation. So Al, your firm did a lease for this new building you're moving to probably 6 months before we had the pandemic. And it was pioneering then to be doing it. And, it looked kind of interesting. Now that the market has revealed itself in downtown West Palm Beach to be attractive to hedge funds and equity capital and so forth, the law firms are finding themselves priced out, and they're actually moving out of downtown. The Kubicki just signed out on Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard, which they moved in 2008 from Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard to the building you're in or we're in. And that's kind of a motion that we can see back and forth. And I think that'll settle out. We just have to see how much space everybody needs to use in office and work from home, and having 80% of your staff in or 50% and so forth. On the retail side, it's very interesting to me to watch and see how things backfill. You have shopping centers that were built in the 70s and 80s that have maybe a Publix in it, but they have 3 times as much space of little stores down the way on it, and there just aren't enough little stores anymore that people want to go to. So we have to look at effective repositioning of those properties. We're actually starting to see some retail centers that are dark or have dark anchors in them, or that have a lot of vacancies in them, being converted to more high density residential sites. North End, up where I live, there's an old North Beach Plaza that was a Blockbuster Video for a long time, and it's now 258 apartments. So we're seeing infill, we're seeing adaptive reuse of retail properties. We're seeing expansion of retail properties out to where the new residential, that much that Dorothy was referring to, because retail's not going to stand still. It's going to go where people are, and they're going to fill in. And you'll have different styles than we've had in the past, but that's where it'll go. The old styles will repurpose as we go along. So I think that we basically have a new trend in retail because we're losing some of the big boxes. So we're going to have smaller, more intimate shopping, other than your Publix and maybe a Trader Joe's or whatever, where you have to get fresh food. Everything else is going to be delivered. Sky's going to see to it that we've got one Amazon next to every Publix, so you can get your delivery. You're also going, and Whole Foods. Sorry, shouldn't forget that. But in office, you're going to see people moving. They'll move out of the hot markets and leave that to the guys from New York, to whom the price isn't, doesn't object. They don't object to $40, $50, $60 a foot when they're paying 120 up north. And the guys who were paying $20, $30 a foot and now are being asked 40, 50 are going to move, 5 miles one way or another, and they'll make it work.
When you say 5 miles away from the downtown area?
Not even. I mean, I'm sitting here on Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. I almost moved downtown. A lot of people did in 08, 9, 10, when the rents were $15, $16, $18 a foot downtown. They're now $40, $50 a foot downtown. And people move back out here. It's a 3-mile shift from the waterfront to out by the outlet mall, if you know what I'm talking about, at Palm Beach Boulevard. That's, people look at it and go, for half the rent or less than twice, I'm willing to move. And I think that's one of the things that it's one of the things that makes the office market unique, or not unique, but it's viable in that if somebody's willing to pay a lot more than you are for the space, you can move somewhere else and backfill, right?
And actually, that's what happened in our instance. Again, because Related wanted to get some anchor tenants in their new building, so they made us a good deal. And And I should say that our space has been, that we vacated has been released already. So there wasn't much of a gap there.
Your space has been leased already?
I believe so.
Okay.
Eric, going back to you again, since we're talking about the future of workspace and I've related our personal situation, now that people are returning to work, we hopefully are seeing the light of the end of this tunnel, more people getting vaccinated. How will the workspace, in your perspective, look in our new normal? And how different will this be from what we've seen before?
Yeah, I guess I'll throw out sort of a jumbled response there. Start with it, I don't know. Right, so the biggest question is really work from home, right? What percentage of workers currently at home will eventually return to an office? I think that's a huge question that we're trying to figure out. There's a short-term, long-term up there, right? In the short term, there's this immediate impact of COVID where everybody's been working from home, and then the long term, I don't think we really know that yet. We're kind of floating in this ether right now. Neil mentioned the subletting, subleasing activity, urban versus suburban. Is it going to go to a hub and spoke model? What's it all going to look like? I don't know. I don't feel that the virus is in the rear view yet because of the vaccinations. I think there's going to be a few things that are going to bubble up that will be difficult for people to deal with. So my bold prediction for office is that qualified pandemic safe properties will be bigger than organic produce. What does that look like? There's a firm just in our area here, Crocker Partners. I know right at the onset of this, they had hired a doctor who is a very long last name. I can't remember what it was. He was basically brought on to, and if you don't know Crocker Partners, they're, I think, headquartered in Boca, large retail office holdings in the Southeast and Southwestern United States. They hired an infectious disease doctor to help manage environmental health, wellness of their employees, tenants, and customers. So from top down, bottom up, from REITs and beyond, it's definitely top of mind. I think we're talking earlier about costs increasing for demand. Cost to adapt your property is something that I think property owners, developers are looking at. I think I read somewhere it's about 1% to 2% of total development costs now that people are looking at. If I'm a commercial property owner, I'm probably looking at these improvements along with maybe the Biden administration's tax proposals, along with my tax planners, and seriously considering some cost segregation analysis if I haven't done so already. On the other hand, how much are tenants going to pay for all this? To me, it just seems like there's a lot of mixed statistics on whether employees prefer working remotely or going back to the office, and what employers may or may not allow them to do. I don't know. Can I answer a question with the question? Is that legal?
Sure.
Okay.
This isn't a legal situation here. We're not in court, so go ahead.
I'm gonna interject there. I think it's very interesting that Eric mentions the hub and spoke. However, when you look at a national basis, that's very acutely aware. But here we're basically we're the spoke anyway. I mean, we are a suburban market. Interestingly, I'm noting in the past 3 months now that firms are opening up. New York firms are opening up a larger office in Miami and a smaller one here. It's very interesting to note. I mean, Steve Cohen's Point 72, which, there was a big announcement. He took 7,500 feet at 360 Rosemary, where you're moving to, Al. They just leased 55,000 feet down on Brickell Avenue. There are 3 other hedge funds that are doing similar, where they're Ken Griffith is going to take 80,000 feet on Brickell. He's going to probably take 15,000 feet up here. And what that is that's responding to the work from home. Basically taught everybody that they don't want to have to commute anymore. They don't want to spend time in the car. They don't want to be out of an office necessarily. They either enjoy or need an office, but they don't want to spend an hour in the morning and an hour at night commuting 6 to 5 days a week. I think that's a real interesting thing that you'll find. I mean, people aren't going to hub and spoke in Palm Beach County, but we may be part of the program for people doing that.
Thanks, Neil. And again, a personal reference, since I commute during normal times, whatever that is, I commute normally from Wellington to downtown West Palm Beach. So it's about a 30 to 45 minute drive, depending on traffic. I haven't been doing that much, and I've saved a lot of money on gas because I haven't been making that commute. So, but Eric, what was that question you were going to ask? You were going to throw out?
I mean, just in general, where does it all go? I mean, we're not a traditional metro market here, but I kind of fit in a spoke already. So maybe that looks more like one of these WeWork Venture X type scenarios where it's a little more of a flexible arrangement. Some people I think feel as high risk, and others look at them as offering flexible solutions that companies need nowadays for their offices. So Neil again said, some people just moved out of a city. Are they willing to maybe commute a longer distance now full time? I know a lot of parents do that are expected to come back to the office shortly. There's no childcare solution out there for them. So I think employers are going to need to support and find more flexible work schedules for their employees before they bring them back.
Okay, well, that's a good segue for my next question to Dorothy. And Dorothy, of course, we all know that residential properties are homesteaded. With the new legislation, the stimulus legislation we've been seeing both on the federal and state level, are there any tax benefits affected to extend to the businesses?
Yeah.
Similar to the homestead.
Well, there is one, and I'll speak to that, but I do just want to make a comment on what Neil said and Eric just said about this whole commuting thing. Of course, what we're also seeing is that, people don't want to commute. So these same New Yorkers that are going to work in downtown West Palm Beach are spending record amounts of money on homes nearby. So El Cid and the south of southern neighborhoods and neighborhoods that will make their commute literally, 15 minutes, are just skyrocketing. And that's going to happen wherever those places are. And it was interesting what Neil was saying about Palm Beach Lakes and that whole new sort of, revitalized, if you will, because a lot of us remember when Palm Beach Lakes was quite a happening place back 30 years ago. But the whole revitalization of that area around that Okeechobee, Palm Beach Lakes, I-95, and then of course the outlet mall, which is drawing people, that's going to generate increased residential values as it grows. So these things are very tied together. And just, to our south, but in our county, Boca Raton has already seen this happening. They worked hard on planning for an area now out by the town center mall, which they allowed greater densities. They created a sort of mini downtown in their own city west of their downtown when they realized that their downtown would never accommodate the kind of size and growth that people were willing to pay for down there. So they sort of moved themselves west. And Delray, to some extent, is doing it as well. With their sort of more interest in the Congress 95 corridor, Atlantic and Congress, that area out west. So anyway, I just wanted to comment on that. But yeah, there is a cap, as there is on homesteaded property, on all other property types. So that includes commercial and second homes and vacant land and industrial, but it's not quite such a desirable cap. The cap on homesteaded properties this year is 1.4%. So everybody will go up that amount. But commercial, it's 10% before it kicks in. So 10% is a pretty big jump, although in this market, it might not be that big. Some people will see it. But 10% is the amount your value would go up if it's pegged to go up. The market is showing it more like 15%. You'd only go up 10. And, in some sectors, that's very, very helpful and has been over time that it's existed. It doesn't cover all taxes because it doesn't cover the school board tax, which is the highest chunk of everyone's tax bill. It's usually almost half of everyone's tax bill, but it covers the rest of it. So it provides something, and it goes away when the property sells. So there's a recapture to that value. But no, it's very interesting what's happening in the commercial market and how it's trickling over one way or another. Another thing I was thinking about was the strip centers, the sort of reuse of strip centers, because I was worried about strip centers. I thought, where are they going to go? But, just down the street from me the other day, I see a Pilates gym in one bay, and I see a laser skincare bay there, and I see even doctors. I have a doctor who's in a strip center now. So I wonder whether we're not going to see so much of them going away, but the convenience of a strip center becoming more desirable, especially as people don't want to go into an office tower full of potentially other sick people, as it were. You know, they'll might be much more comfortable going into a strip center. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, a lot of it is still wait as we sort of finish COVID, as Eric said, and see what actually happens.
Dorothy, I thought you were going to say a lot of people don't want to go into towers full of lawyers.
Maybe you'll be moving into a strip center, Al, next.
No, we're committed to the new building now, and looking forward to this. I'm going to switch back to you again, Sky. You know, I know your firm is a national, maybe international firm and looks at real estate, not only locally, but across the nation. So how would you compare, hopefully what we're going through, we'll be approaching a recovery in our local market compared to national markets? And I know those markets vary depending on actual locations, but what's the 30,000-foot view on that?
I think that we are a beacon of light, and still really one of the more anomalies in the national landscape from the amount of migration we've experienced. I think there's not nearly the positive office conversation in many other parts of the country than what's taking place here, at least Palm Beach and Miami-Dade County. I think the amount of wealth that is being invested in our county is incomparable, maybe on par with what was taking place before in New York City. And some of the trades that are taking place on the industrial side are, like I said before, new record values. And I think that high level, there's still a lot of pain in the central part of the country. There's still a lot of uncertainty as to all of these different types of residential, commercial, retail future. And industrial is benefited in many ways from COVID and people wanting the safety and security of staying in their homes and ordering all of their products to their house. Call center spaces that were growing like crazy, or other large office campuses in many other parts of the country. I think there's going to be some future calls on some of the debt, and we'll see, what happens as the stimulus plans end, the eviction, moratorium ends, and we're fortunate to be in our local environment. Obviously, a lot of disruption that's taken place, a lot of difficulty, and we're really in a fortuitous environment.
Thanks. We have about 10 minutes left. This is, I think, been really interesting discussion. We did have one comment from one of our viewers asking about the potential for further development west of, say, State Road 7, with a lot of urban infill on the east side of the county. Eric, and first Eric and then Neil, what are your comments or thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've worked with a few national home builders that have been trying to pry open that gate, I think, for a while, right? So Palm Beach County Commissioners, I think, have recently, at least in the Palm Beach Post, opened up the idea that maybe a little bit more. The Ag Reserve and such, urban infill sites have been targeted. There's just no low-hanging fruits out there, right? So people have been looking through, brownfield stuff and taking over old golf courses and trying to find a way to rub a few nickels together to make a deal work. Some deals just don't pencil out. You look at some of the way the prices have come, that's just this kind of sign of the times. Yeah, land costs, construction costs, things don't add up. So people getting, creative with alternate construction, things like container houses and container projects and stuff like that. So where will it all go? What can people afford? How long will they keep wanting to come here versus going somewhere else? I'm just not sure. I hope that helps answer the question a little bit.
Thanks, Neil. Your thoughts?
We're seeing more and more of the new development taking place out west. These were developments that were slated in the early 2000s, 3, 4, 5, and were working their way through and got shut down in 2008. Dorothy knows well. These came back to life 2, 3 years ago. Westlake, Avenir, some of the others out in the northwestern portion of the county. They're now 3 years ahead of, in 1 year, they've produced 3 years worth of homes that they projected and sold them. It's phenomenal growth. They have more land. There'll be plenty of development out west. It's something that we just didn't get to. It was orange groves 20 years ago. Then it was dead stuff they let the trees die and then their plans died, but now they're building. Interesting to note that most of these developments have very major development areas for office, retail, and in some cases industrial. We're just not ready for them yet. Roads are a little bit of a problem getting back and forth, but at some point there's going to be more commercial development out west. I appreciate what Eric was talking about with the ag reserve, but that's a real issue. I mean, we spent $100 million buying up stuff and putting that in, and whether or not it was right to do, it may not work out now, but yeah, at some point they'll get something. I don't know if somebody like Kushner's going to come in and build 1 million feet out there, but people keep knocking on that door. But I think that we have a lot of development in a nod to our sponsor today. Florida Crystals is one of the largest landowners in Palm Beach County with some 650,000 acres out west. Who knows? You want to talk about what my grandchildren may be working on? Maybe new housing communities out there.
And if I can just add to that, Al, that is the thing that you see so clearly when you look visually at Palm Beach County. I mean, the entire left side of our county is still just land. And when you think about that in comparison to Broward County, and I think it's one of the things that we don't talk a lot about Broward County versus Palm Beach. We talk about Palm Beach versus Miami-Dade. We have even here today. Broward is built out. I mean, Broward is banging up against the Everglades, right? If you think about it, I mean, you drive out on the Sawgrass, it's gone all the way out. And we have a very different dynamic here. And so, yeah, there's a lot of controversy over the ag reserve and so forth, but the ag reserve is just one small piece of that enormous western area. And I think both to the north and the south of it, there's plenty of opportunity for building. I still go back to there's going to be a roads issue, but that's a conversation, a bigger conversation that maybe the chamber should take up, because it's going to be getting the people get back and forth. But we've got the land.
So not necessarily back and forth, but north and south. The chamber has been a long time supporter of the extension of State Road 7, which has been in controversy for 15, maybe 20 years. The city of West Palm Beach has opposed it. And that battle is continuing. So it's going to be interesting to watch that. I think we're coming up on our time, but I do want to throw something back at you, Eric. You posed a comment that Palm Beach Lakes is a New Earth Avenue. I don't quite see that, but you want to elaborate?
That was intended just to be a comment to the panelists based on Dorothy's and Neil's mention of it.
Okay.
I don't know if it's quite that.
Yeah, I think Worth Avenue is probably a unique area. I'm not a commercial expert, but I think like you have Worth Avenue and Rodeo Drive and then the rest of the country. Any closing comments? I'm going to ask you to begin, Sky, and then we'll go through this, but keep them short because we're almost at the edge of our time.
Certainly in my world on the industrial side, the conversation about the ag reserve is extremely interesting to see what happens, to Neil's point with the Kushners. If that occurs, it could be a waterfall effect. I appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss some of the industrial market. Thank you, Al. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Chamber, and everyone continue to strive for greatness in our county.
Thanks, Guy. We appreciate your participation. Neil?
First of all, Al, I want to thank you for doing a wonderful job moderating. It's hard to corral these cats that you got out here. A couple of things to note. We're facing a lot of inflationary pressures on commercial real estate as we are on residential. There's obviously the costs that right now, construction costs are up 30% since January, which is huge. But on top of that, interest rates have been maintained so low that they're driving values up because you can borrow very cheaply. So, it's going to make things more expensive. However, we are miles ahead of the rest of the world. All of South Florida, and particularly Palm Beach County, is a beacon for growth, and we haven't shrunk. We've blossomed. It's kind of got a shot of fertilizer, you might say, and I'm happy for it. And hopefully we can do this again next year and see how much more we grow.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Thank you, Neil. Eric, closing thoughts.
Yeah. Thanks again for the opportunity to be here. Two things. One, I hope all the business owners out there recognize that we have the second highest savings rates in personal savings rates in recorded history. So go out and get some of that. There's one lesser thing I think that's talked about that keeps me up at night that I think falls in line with this topic, though, and it's mental health, not just the Zoom fatigue that we probably have. And I'm not a health practitioner, but many of us, regardless of our experiences over the last 14 months or so, feel a little bit beat up at some level. Maybe it's more of a PTSD situation, whereas this thing just didn't come and go. I think it's still here. I think the old normal's not coming back. And us United States of Americans are a resilient bunch. Our nature, not being able to connect at an event like a chamber meeting like this is tough. Great to see something coming back in person. Those are, awesome words to hear. But for I think a lot of us, workplace was like a family. That was our support network. And outside of COVID, I probably spent more time with work families than I have my own, and that just hasn't been there. And I think employees are tired of stress, and despite being excited at the prospect of going back to work, are a bit nervous about change again. One of the positive takeaways I've heard from the Rona is that people discovered a work-life balance and were able to spend more time with their families, and now that's going to change, even though may have been just as much productive or more than the physical workplace of the past. So I think employers across industries need to realize they can help reach their team's full potential if they can provide a greater sense of autonomy than before, while increasing the responsible activity in person. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Eric. Very poignant statement, I think. And Dorothy.
Definitely. Thank you, Eric. It's a very good point. I would just say thank you again, Al, and to the panel. It was very interesting. I learned something every time. A big thing I would say to everyone is with these increased values that we're seeing with the market running like it is, taxes are the other side. So, this summer, taxing authorities across the county will set their tax rates. And that's not a process they do in a vacuum. It's something their commissioners, their leaders, the people you elect are making those decisions. And I think it's important that you're a part of that. You get a notice from me every August, and it outlines for you what your taxes potentially could be. They're not set in stone at that point. So I really just say to you, just read that notice and go and call your city commissioner, your county commissioners, your school board members and say, come on, folks, you're getting all this new money. Maybe, keep the tax rate the same or lower it even, because the idea is that as value goes up, the rate could go down. So I just throw that out there. I don't mean to bash on my friends at all the cities in the county, but I do think it's something we should keep in mind, because it's unsustainable that our property taxes would get to a level where people say, my God, I can't even pay my property taxes. We don't want to be at that point. Should this market correct in a few years or whenever that might happen. So I just throw that out there to everyone listening to, pay attention to your taxes. It's important that you be a part of that process, and you can be.
I agree, and thank you very much, Dorothy. That's a good comment. And I would add to that with the taxes, once it's collected, hopefully our other elected officials will spend them in the right places and know what they're doing. I'm going to turn it over. Again, I want to thank all of the panelists. I want to thank the staff of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber, who really helped run this thing and help with our script, Emily Statnick and Johnny Brief, particularly great staff members. And with that, I want to thank you all and turn the program to close to our Executive Vice President, Maria Antonina. Maria?
Thank you, Al. Good afternoon, everyone. It's actually now good afternoon. I'll be quick. I know everybody's probably wanting to go to lunch. Just want to share 2 upcoming events that are coming up very quickly here on us. The first one will be Wednesday, June 2nd, which is our Resiliency Lessons Learned from the Unexpected. We're going to hear from a panel of experts on preparing your business to withstand future challenges and having a resiliency plan in place. We will have representation from Emergency Management Palm Beach County, Tropical Shipping, and FEMA. And shortly right after that, on June 10th, we'll have our legislative recap, where we're going to have Palm Beach County senators and state representatives that will bring us up to date on the recent changes during the sessions that they were recently had. So on behalf of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we certainly appreciate your taking the time to be with us this morning. And we certainly hope that you're walking away with some good information that I thought was necessary as a chamber and as a team that you were aware of. We also would like to give a special thank you and a shout out to our presenting partner, Florida Crystals and Caroline Villanueva, and to our moderator, Al Malfado, and of course to our wonderful panelists, Sky Groden, Dorothy Jacks, Eric Johnson, and Neil Marin. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you, Maria. And we'll see you again soon, hopefully online and maybe in person.